"Excuse me, sir, could I check my account?" Those simple words came from a boy named Grady Carter, shoes falling apart, holding his grandmother's envelope. The bank manager's laughter echoed. They judged him on sight, never guessing the truth inside that envelope. When the truth came out, it wiped that smile right off their faces. So what turned a simple request into a moment that no one would forget? Comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Before that moment in the bank, Grady Carter lived a life most people never saw. He was a quiet kid, known in his neighborhood for keeping to himself, carrying responsibilities far heavier than his small frame suggested. After losing his grandmother, the only steady presence he had ever known, Grady spent his days clinging to the things she left behind, her words, her guidance, and the small brown envelope she told him to protect. Inside it were documents he barely understood, but he trusted her more than anyone in the world. His shoes were worn, his jacket thin, and every morning he walked past places where people rarely noticed him. But his grandmother had always told him that dignity was not about how he looked. It's about how he carried himself when the world tried to make him feel small. After her passing, those words became the anchor he held on to. Grady's uncle worked long hours trying to rebuild stability for them both. That meant Grady often handled small tasks alone. Visiting the bank wasn't supposed to be anything more than that, a simple responsibility, one he took seriously because his grandmother had trusted him with it. He had rehearsed the entire walk there in his head, step inside, hand over the envelope, let them check the account, and return home. He wasn't thinking about how he looked to strangers or how out of place he might seem among polished floors and well-dressed customers. He only carried the hope that everything his grandmother saved would be safe. But beneath that hope was something else, an uneasiness he couldn't quite name. A feeling that stepping into a world that didn't expect someone like him might not be as simple as he imagined. And as Grady approached the bank doors, he had no idea that the next few minutes would test every lesson his grandmother ever taught him and expose a truth he never saw coming. When Grady Carter stepped through the glass doors of the bank, he expected a routine errand. Instead, the entire atmosphere shifted around him. Conversations slowed, eyes sharpened, and expressions hardened with instant judgment. His worn shoes, his thin jacket, the envelope gripped tightly in his hands. Everything about him became a target before he even reached the counter. The bank felt colder than the weather outside. Customers moved with ease, their transactions handled quickly, their smiles returned effortlessly by the employees. But Grady could feel the weight of every stare as he waited for his turn. The polished floors reflected a version of him the world always saw first, a poor black boy who didn't belong in places like this. His heart thudded, but he reminded himself why he was here. His grandmother's legacy, her trust, her sacrifice. When he finally approached the counter, the reaction was instant. The manager's glance slid over him with the kind of disbelief reserved for someone who dared step into a space unwritten rules said wasn't meant for him. The staff exchanged looks, nudges, and small smirks, each one laced with assumptions Grady could feel more than see. The moment they noticed the envelope, their suspicion deepened, as if a child like him had no right to something that looked official. He tried to stand taller, to carry himself with dignity the way his grandmother taught him, but the whispers around him built a kind of pressure he had never felt before. A wealthy customer looked him up and down with open disdain, stepping further away as if his presence alone contaminated the air. Another shook her head slowly, already convinced he didn't belong. Then came the turning point, when the manager took the envelope from his hands. Grady watched him skim through the documents carelessly, not with the professionalism of someone doing their job, but with the arrogance of someone convinced they already knew the truth. The moment he spotted the premium tier bank card tucked inside, something flickered across his face. Not respect alarm, but instead of acknowledging it, he dismissed it. Prejudice outweighed evidence. Assumptions drowned out reality. What followed was a quiet storm of humiliation. The manager moved Grady to a corner seat near the janitor's closet, a place designed to make him invisible. Minutes stretched into tens. People came and went, served efficiently while Grady remained untouched, ignored, and scrutinized from afar. Every laugh in the lobby felt like it echoed toward him. Every glance felt sharper than a blade. Grady's hands trembled as he held onto his grandmother's letter, reading her words again and again, trying to steady himself. Her handwriting anchored him, her voice echoing in his mind like a soft shield against the hostility around him. But the longer the wait, the more impossible it became to ignore the truth. He wasn't being helped, he was being judged. The manager eventually called him back, but not to offer service. Instead, the questions became harsher, the tone colder, and the accusations thicker. His background, his family, his appearance, everything was twisted into a narrative of doubt. It didn't matter what the papers said. It didn't matter what the card proved. In their eyes, he didn't fit the image of someone with real money, real inheritance, or real worth. The moment the manager announced he would freeze the account pending investigation, the bank lobby shifted into something far more dangerous. Everyone heard. Everyone assumed the worst. And as Grady stood there, holding back tears he refused to show, something inside him began to crack. He didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the situation would spiral beyond humiliation and into a confrontation that would expose every hidden truth in that building. And the moment was coming fast. Grady Carter stood in the middle of the bank lobby, small, shaking, and completely alone, while the manager's announcement echoed across the polished floors like a public verdict. Every pair of eyes fixed on him, not with concern, but with accusation. To them, he wasn't a child carrying his grandmother's legacy. He was a problem, an intruder, a suspect. When the manager signaled security, the moment shifted from humiliation to danger. The guard's steps were slow and heavy, each one sending a deeper chill through Grady's chest. The customers stepped aside, forming a path as if they were clearing space for something inevitable. No one questioned the treatment. No one asked for proof. Their silence was agreement, and that silence tore through Grady harder than any word could. As he was escorted toward the doors, the world around him blurred. The laughter behind him felt distant, but the pain sat heavy in his chest. His grandmother's envelope slipped slightly in his trembling hands, and he clutched it tighter because it was the last piece of her he had left. Outside, the cold wind sliced through his thin jacket while people passed him without a second glance. He sank onto a bench, the cracked pavement beneath his feet reflecting the same cracks forming inside him. Minutes passed like hours. Cars came and went. No help arrived. And for the first time since losing his grandmother, he felt completely abandoned. Even the buzzing phone in his pocket offered no comfort. Every vibration reminded him that he wasn't inside that bank anymore. He had been pushed out, erased, dismissed like he didn't matter. Tears he tried to hold back finally fell, carving silent trails down his cheeks as he stared at the envelope containing everything she had ever worked for. But then, everything changed. A sleek, black car pulled into the parking lot. The door swung open, and a figure stepped out. Tall, composed, unmistakably powerful. It was his uncle. The moment his eyes landed on Grady sitting alone on that bench, something inside him ignited. He moved quickly, the tension in his shoulders revealing the storm building inside. When Grady told him what happened, the quiet fury in his uncle's expression was unlike anything the boy had ever seen. Not rage, something deeper, something unshakable. Together, they walked back toward the bank. The same doors that had pushed Grady out now opened for them with a soft, mechanical sigh. Heads turned, conversations died, and in that single moment, the balance of power in the room shifted, not slowly, but instantly. Because the bank was about to meet the truth. And the truth was, walking through its lobby with Grady Carter at his side. When Grady and his uncle stepped back into the lobby, the same space that had rejected him moments earlier suddenly felt different. The quiet confidence in his uncle's presence forced every spectator to confront what they had ignored. And when the truth came out, when his uncle revealed who Grady was and what his grandmother had left behind, the shock rippled through the room like a wave no one could escape. The very people who dismissed him now watched in stunned silence as the truth they refused to see stood right in front of them. Policies were reviewed, careers faced consequences, and the bank was forced to reckon with the reality that its treatment of one child wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern built on assumptions, on stereotypes, on a belief that some people deserve respect while others do not. Grady didn't fully understand corporate power or disciplinary meetings, but he understood something far deeper: dignity. The same dignity his grandmother taught him to carry, even when the world tried to crush it. In the days that followed, Grady's life did not suddenly become perfect. But something changed inside him. He realized that the shame he felt sitting on that cold bench was never his to carry. It belonged to the people who judged him before knowing his name. It belonged to a world still struggling to see Black children as children worthy of safety, respect, and fairness. His grandmother's sacrifice became more than money in an account. It became a reminder that worth isn't measured by appearance, wealth, or status. It is measured by the character a person carries, even when no one is watching. And as Grady grew older, the memory of that day stayed with him, not as a scar, but as a lesson. A reminder of how quickly prejudice can turn a simple errand into a battle for dignity. A reminder of how silence from bystanders can wound deeper than words. A reminder of how one moment can expose the truth about an entire system. In the end, the real question is not what happened to Grady. The real question is, when you see injustice happening in front of you, who will you choose to be? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and our community's fight to be seen.